This, this honorable court is now resumed. God save the king. You may be seated, please.
For the benefit of the writer, my lord, there are three persons, Mr. Jaziel Blake, Mr. Jermaine Robinson, and Mr. Andre Golding. Plea mitigations are to be done for them today, my lord.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Andre Bryan, Mr. Tomrick Taylor, Mr. Michael Whiteley, Mr. Dylan McLean, Mr. Lamar Simpson, Mr. Tariq James, Ms. Stephanie Christie, Mr. Fabian Johnson, Mr. Jaziel Blake, thank you, Mr. Royal Taylor, thank you, sir, Mr. Joseph McDermott, Mr. Jermaine Robinson, thank you, Mr. Andre Golding, thank you, sir, Mr. Bryan Morris, and Mr. Ted Pritz. Thank you all. All present, my lord.
Connected now. Okay. Yes, Counsel. With respect of Mr. Andre Golding.
May it so please you, my lord. I am Alexander Shaw, and I appear along with Mr. Aston Spencer for Mr. Andre Golding. My lord, I am in receipt of the social inquiry report for Mr. Golding and the antecedents. I have no challenge to either documents, my lord.
Mr. Andre Golding? Thank you. Please stand. Mr. Andre Golding, do you admit to having two previous convictions? The first being on the 4th day of March 2013 at the St. Catherine Parish Court, Spanish Town, for the offense of larceny of a motorcycle, and you were imprisoned to 12 months at hard labor? Okay, he admitted to the first one, my lord. The second being on the 14th day of January 2014 at the said St. Catherine Parish Court, Spanish Town, for the offense of possession of ganja. You were sentenced to come into service for 40 hours. Thank you. My lord, he has admitted to both previous convictions. Mr. Andre Golding, you haven't been found guilty on the 8th day of March 2023 to the offense of being part of a criminal organization. Is there anything you, sir, wish to say to this honorable court before a sentence is passed upon you? Thank you.
Yes.
My lord, I have prepared my submissions, my plea mitigation in writing so that you can perhaps keep track. All right. My lord, at this stage of a criminal trial, one has to confront the real issues, especially when we arrive here, not out of a plea of guilty, but by a trial. And the truth is that even though we did not accept responsibility when arraigned in September of 2021, but having done so, having done two similar matters in this court, I would posit, my lord, that such a course doesn't seem to be the norm. And albeit that I am not able to say whether such failure arises out of fear of repercussions based on the violent nature of these entities and primarily how this organization has been described. What is by no means insignificant is that Mr. Golding has accepted responsibility for his actions, and that is I submit the first phase of a remorseful convict. Now, as an officer of this court, I cannot shy away from the harsh realities in this country, and that is that gang-related violence is often reported as taking center stage and somewhat is crippling the quality of life that ordinary Jamaicans face. And I know that, my lord, you will bear this in mind when deliberating on what punishment is suitable in the circumstances. But, my lord, I will go further to say that some of these very accused men are victims of their circumstances. And though we will suggest that they had a choice, it is not always easy a decision by virtue of their socioeconomic standing, which I firmly believe sometimes take away that freedom of choice. And if there is any truth in the saying that when you go to Rome, you have to do what the Romans do, then Andre Golding was just doing that because he wasn't from Rivoli, really. And that is where this organization is also resident, but is from 73 St. John's Road in Spanish Town. And as per the social inquiry report, he operated a small business in the community, and it was mainly for its survival that he had to pretend to be a part of the gang, because if he had acted otherwise, he may have been killed, as others who had been before openly opposing the gang or speaking ill of its leaders. Now, importantly, my lord, Mr. Golding has not sought to shift in any shape or form that it was his decision to remain in Rivoli and takes full responsibility for his actions. He says he can only blame himself for his current circumstances. Mr. Golding, my lord, has been in a steady relationship for over 7 years and is a father of 2 minor children who, my lord, are suffering from their father's incarceration. And this, my lord, is a common denominator in poverty-stricken communities like Rivoli, Jones Avenue, and all the other areas that host this entity. And while their father has to face the music of his current predicament, I beseech your lordship that their wait will not be too long, as there are too many youngsters in this country without a father in their life. And should we take stock of many of whom are in the dock at this hour, the result would show, just like it was for Mr. Golding, no father was around to guide and guard them from the luring calls of negativity and, to a greater extent, gang-related activities. The social inquiry report, my lord, speaks to Mr. Golding's childhood, which was fraught with challenges, primarily because he was a product of his father's marital union, and he was not a product, my lord, of his father's union, and his mother did not want him. So the real struggle, my lord, is that at 8 months old, neither his mother nor father accepted him, and it wasn't because he was troubled at that tender age. But the harsh reality, my lord, is that sometimes grown adults do not always accept the consequences of their decisions, and thereby creating discomfort for children who will grow wondering what they did wrong. But notwithstanding his childhood trauma, his guardian, Mrs. Myrna Robinson, opened his guardian, Myrna Robinson, gave him a home She exposed him to positive social norms and values and ensured he was loved and cared for. My Lord, as soon as Mr. Golding settled in high school, his life was disrupted again by his father's intervention, and he was taken to England, as the report suggests. But he spent almost 3 years before his life plunged once more into the inner city of Spanish Town. And this was occasioned by the turbulence in his home with his father and stepmother. And here it started, after Mr. Golding allowed what is sometimes the common fate of garrison boys to lead him into negative social groups. But, my Lord, I submit that he is not unrepentant, but one who pleads for your mercy. May I say, if such availeth for a new lease on life. He is described by his community as an honest and hard-working young man who is respectful and is usually soft-spoken. They noted that he would get his bread from working on several construction sites, at a car wash, and his little hustling at the shop in Rivoli, expressing clearly that he was never an idle hand. And should your lordship grant him an early return, no more than ever would he not cause prison gates to welcome him back for love nor favor. They also noted, my Lord, that he was not a violent person and suggested that he could have been implicated due to his associations. They have joined my pleadings, my Lord, asking that he be given a second chance. And they are a little bolder, my Lord, because they're asking your Lordship for a non-custodial sentence. And while, my Lord, that may seem a stretch, I must admit that we're not saying that Mr. Golding is a saint. He's not Saint Golding of St. John. He has two prior convictions, that of larceny of a motorcycle and possession of ganja. But I submit that these offenses are of a different category. And this conviction is not a graduation up the ladder of criminality. He can easily reintegrate into society. As he's literate, he has a certificate in painting and internal decoration from Lambeth College in England. And so, my Lord, I urge your Lordship, as I turn to the principles of sentencing, that when you pause to deliberate thereon, I ask you to consider my earlier submissions where I cited the case of Sargent, and Justice Lawton noted that there are two aspects of deterrence. Deterrence of the offender, and deterrence of likely offenders. He has said that experience has shown over the years that deterrence of the offender is not a very useful approach, because those who have their wits about them usually find the closing of prison gates an experience which they do not want again. And if they do not learn that lesson, there is likely to be a high degree of recidivism anyway. So far as deterrence of others is concerned, it is the experience of the courts that deterrent sentences are of little value in respect of offenses that are committed on the spur of the moment. But even though their lordships limit that to offenses on the spur of the moment, my Lord, I will say to your lordship that this type of offense, one can agree that it requires premeditation. But in the context of Mr. Golding, it was largely by virtue of association because he has just been convicted for count 2, my lord. There are other counts that were more violent, are more violent than count 2. And it is in tandem with my earlier position that, or the position of the community, that Mr. Golding is not a violent person. And I think that is perhaps what, or that is where the minds of their lordships were at that point in terms of violent persons. I see your lordship.
The difficulty that I'm having,
Yes.
counsel, is that sitting as a judge, you see all these pronouncements about, for example, deterrence of the offender, deterrence of likely offenders. Experience has shown over the years that deterrence of the offender is not a very useful approach because those who have their wits about them usually find the closing of prison gates an experience which they do not want. Again, one of the difficulties with these pronouncements is that it's not backed up by data, evidence. Where are the studies dealing with recidivism, all of those kinds of things? It's just simply not there. So we have all of these pronouncements by judges, eminent judges, but where is the supporting data? So that's just one of the difficulties that I have with these pronouncements. It's similar to when you hear about rehabilitation.
Yes, my lord.
Ultimately, no sentence can rehabilitate anybody. It has to be a decision that the person makes. And until they make that decision, it really doesn't matter what programs you have. That is internal to the person. So no sentence is going to transform anybody into a person who embraces reform unless that person themselves decide that this is what I want to do. And again, how are you going to know this? You can't know this. You only can look at evidence over time. And even when you look at past behavior, and oftentimes it is said that persons who have good educational opportunities, they were in a steady job, those are indicators that they are good candidates for reform. But there's no inevitable connection. The person may have decided on a life of crime. And just that they are caught at this moment in time. Or they may have had a life of crime and they were never caught before. So I don't know. I really don't know these things,
Millard, not that I'm differing from your lordship's position, only to the extent that I don't have the studies here to support my argument. But I am of the view, Millard, that a long prison sentence, which I think is what your lordship has just expressed, is not a means to rehabilitation. And that is perhaps why I am urging your lordship to consider that Mr. Golding does not need a long prison sentence. And in looking at the principle of rehabilitation, I have here, my lord, which is where I was heading, that here his lordship continued by saying some 20 to 25 years ago, there was a view abroad. I think that view is held here as well. Many people in the executive authority believe that short sentences were of little value because there was not enough time given in prison, so that one can benefit from training. But, my lord, counsel who went before me yesterday, Mr. Keith Bishop, he spoke of the conditions of our prisons. And if we should give true meaning to the principles of sentencing, primarily rehabilitation, more has to be done. As attorneys, we don't live in silos, and we have been privy to information that persons are controlling turfs from behind lockups, which means that sending someone away forever will not prevent them from doing ill or causing harm to society. And as your lordship has said, it has to be an individual thing. The convict has to be willing to change. And I started out by saying Mr. Golding has accepted responsibility, which, my lord, is indicative of him wanting to rehabilitate. My lord, the case of Cecil Gibson, the citation is there, my lord, 1975-13 Jamaica Law Report, 207, pages 211 and 212. Justice of Appeal Graham Perkins said that it should never at any time be thought that a convicted person standing in a dock is no more than an abstraction. He is what he is because of his antecedents, and justice can only be done to him if proper and due regard is had to him as an individual, and a real attempt is made to deal with him with reference to the particular circumstances of his case. To ignore these is to ignore an essential consideration in the purpose of punishment, namely the rehabilitation of the offender. Now, my lord, having said all of that, I urge your lordship to consider a starting point of 1/3 of the maximum penalty, given Mr. Golding is a first offender under this legislation, and this will take us to approximately 7 years, given his antecedents and the fact that this is a gang-related matter, and by its very nature, these types of crimes, or the types of crimes that this organization is said to have committed, an additional 2 years is sufficient to this end as an aggravating factor. This takes us, my lord, to 9 years. I am urging in the amount of 4 years. He has been in custody from August of 2019, and a further discount of 2 years for the mitigating factors that I've outlined earlier. My lord, we urge your lordship to balance justice with clemency as you deliberate on the punishment appropriate for Mr. Golding in this matter. That's the extent of my submissions, unless your lordship requires more of me.
All right, thank you very much. So, Mr. Jaziel Blake. Yes, go on, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Morning, my lord. I am Deandra Bramwell. I appear with Roxanne Smith, and we will be assisting Mr. Jaziel Blake today, my lord.
Mr. Jaziel Blake. Mr. Blake, do you, sir, admit to having one previous conviction on the 30th day of May 2012 at the St. Catherine Circuit Court for the offense of carnal abuse, and you were sentenced to a 3 years, suspended for 2 years at hard labor? Thank you, my lord. He has admitted to the previous offense. Mr. Jaziel Blake, you haven't been found guilty on the 8th day of March 2023 to the offenses of being part of a criminal organization, count 2, and count 7 and 8, facilitating the commission of a serious offense by a criminal organization. Is there anything you, sir, wish to say to this honorable court before a sentence is passed upon you?
Yes.
Morning again. We had the opportunity to review the social inquiry report and the antecedent prepared for Mr. Blake. Though Mr. Blake continues to maintain his innocence, he wishes to clarify to this honorable court that he is indeed aware of the seriousness of the offenses he has been convicted of and its adverse impact on the community. Before Mr. Blake was taken into custody, my lord, he was gainfully employed as a welder, and he worked as a barber on the weekends. The responses of the community and his family, particularly his grandmother, is noted. Mr. Blake is quite remorseful about the pain and the disappointment that is being felt by his family and also the community, and the community which he was raised in. He has been in custody for 4 years and 3 months, and he has taken the time to deeply reflect on the life he lived and the future he wants. The association that will have a more impact on him. Pardon. Mr. Blake has taken the time to deeply reflect on the life that he lived and the future that he wants, which is the future and association that will have a more positive impact on him as a person, his daughter, and the role model that he wants to be for his daughter. By extension, he would like to be able to give back to his community in a positive way, my Lord. He has already begun receiving his punishment as he has been in custody for over 4 years. He has lost his family. He has not been able to have a relationship with his child. So with all of this in consideration, Your Honor, sorry, my Lord, my apologies. We ask that all that has transpired, what he has now experienced, and the deep reflection that he's now going through, and him noting now that he needs to change his ways, and in the future, it is his intention to do so. We ask that you take that into consideration when you are considering or determining his final punishment. My Lord, if there's not anything else I can assist with, that is the pleading for Mr. Blake.
Thank you very much. So that takes us back now to Mr. Bryan. Anybody else? We don't have anybody else. Mr. who? Ah, yes. Mr. Robinson. This counsel is here.
My Lord, we have received the report for Mr. Robinson, the social inquiry report and his antecedent, and we have accepted it as it is. We have no question for the preparer.
Mr. Jermaine Robinson, please stand, sir. Mr. Jermaine Robinson, you haven't been found guilty on the 8th day of March, 2023, to the offense of being part of a criminal organization. Is there anything you, sir, wish to say to this honorable court before sentence is passed upon you?
Mr. Robinson was given the opportunity to peruse the social inquiry report prepared for him, and also we note the antecedent report, which indicates that this is his first run-in with the law. Mr. Robinson continues to maintain that he is only here because of his association with some of the accused, as he grew up in the community and knew and maintained a cordial relationship with a few, but he never partake in any criminal activities. Notwithstanding maintaining his innocence, Mr. Robinson fully appreciates and emphasizes with the victims that were affected My Lord, Mr. Robinson was exposed to a decent childhood and was on the right path of adding value to society. He successfully completed his high school and continued down the path of his father, his positive role model, giving back to his country. It is quite unfortunate that Mr. Robinson did not realize until now that he has to be mindful of the company he keeps. Mr. Robinson has basically lost his reputation throughout this whole process, and it has affected him. It has affected his self-esteem because people of society won't view him in the same light. My Lord, Mr. Robinson has, or his biggest heart desire is to be a functional father to his children and to be there for them physically, emotionally, and financially. However, given the situation, he will not be able to do so until he is freed. Both of his children are young, as at the time of him being brought into custody, his daughter was not yet born and his son was only 2 years old. Both of his children, they are young and they are now losing out on the guidance of a father. He's not there to love and show them love because of his current position. The situation, my Lord, has taught Mr. Robinson so much. And whilst others are sleeping most nights, he is up reflecting on his past, which better enables him to put himself in a positive, or put himself in a position for a change, for a better future ahead, where he can be a figure in society again, where others would want to emulate, despise his past. My Lord, we ask that you note the positive report from his family and the community when considering consider their views when considering Mr. Robinson's final punishment. Mr. Jermaine Robinson begs for leniency, my Lord, and he throws himself at the leniency of this court. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so that takes care of the other 14. So we're now down to Mr. Bryan. Listen, you have a microphone there, Mr. Bryan. You can use that microphone.
Good morning, Chief.
But just to let you know, you see, we have a time limit here now. So he's not going to be speaking without limit. So it's 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
10 minutes and only 10. So you have had, goodness, a day to think about all that you wanted to say, and it's 10 minutes, no more than 10 minutes. And when the 10 minutes are up, you're done.
That's it, Chief. Morning. I have some knowledge to share.
Okay.
Jeremiah 3, verse 15. By precept, one come to understanding. Psalms 119, 104. By reasoning, ones and one come to mutual understanding. Jeremiah 1, verse 18. Psalms 82, verse 5. They don't know, nor will they understand. They walk about in darkness. I say all the foundation of the earth are unstable. I am the principle of consciousness. One principle flow conscious as a Ford. I am not an ox. The stature is a mirror to one principle. I saw a statue once in the capital city, in Kingston, bearing an image of a naked woman and a man. But it's evident today that one don't have that right, that birthright. One only have the right to remain silent, which spell listen. I once saw a statue bearing representation of liberty, but it's not on the land, it's more out in the water. That simply means the people are not free. This, as I say, is for the greater good. And I don't have anything against the prosecutor, Miss Bruce, police, the chief himself, the accused. But by principle, precept, understanding, there is only one law, and that is common law. There is only one sense, and that is common sense. One is the only law. One is the law. The statue is a mirror to one principle. They don't know, neither will they understand. They walk about in clothes, which is darkness. One, excuse me, Chief. One walk around in, can you see this? One walk around in awareness. I don't exist. God alone exists. Every time I came in this court, I have to bow to that reptilian over your head. The reptilian that gave Eve the pineapple in that basket. But the ones and ones don't have on any clothes. Lion cloths and the lions. That is in deep contrast with the law. The law needs to reform, and the time is now. The picture with them paint on the canvas. The world is but a canvas to imagination of one. It's the Dan talking, one Dan, and there's no other Dan. Any other than a Clarendon. It's the teacher talking, one teacher. God alone is the teacher. God is the Dan. I don't know no Jesus. I just know common sense. I never went to no Ford, no Oxford. I am not an Ox. I never went to no Ford for any water, any knowledge. But I am a well. One is a well-being. One well and know. All of this, just an experience. It's not real. Like the clock, you ask someone time, them tell you 10 past 11, no aware and numbers, them tell you, you know. Just a representation. It's not real. It's how one perceive. All these accused, They've been around me, yes, but they don't know. They only see what the eyes see. No one know. The truth must be told. And by precept, we come to understanding. I give orders, instruction. They were all under influence. Same for the witnesses. We get pardon. I don't know who pardoned them. By precept, all of them should have been pardoned. And you take me in account. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you very much. So that's it for everyone then. All right. Now I have some engagements for the rest of the week. So we'll complete this Monday and Tuesday of next week. I will let you know what I think of all that I have heard and all that I have read. So, lady and gentlemen.
Milord, before you conclude, Milord, yesterday there was an indication
Oh,
to...
from Miss.
Yes.
Yes, Miss.
We have abandoned that position, Milord.
Yes, Miss Christie concerning the other two.
Yes, Milord.
Well, if she could be formally be put to her, thank you for reminding me.
Very well.
Formally be put to her the other two offenses on the same date. I think it was at the 6th of October, 6th of July or something. So. Yes.
Good morning, Ms. Christie. Ms. Christie, do you admit to having five, thank you, Lord, previous convictions? The first being on the 12th day of February 2016 at the St. Catherine Parish Court for the offense of obtaining money by false pretenses, and you were suspended for 18 months. Sorry, you were in prison for 18 months, but suspended for 3 years. Okay, my Lord, she admits to the first conviction, my Lord. The second, Miss Christie, is on the 6th day of October 2017 at the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court for the offense of forgery. You were fined $100,000 or imprisonment to 9 months at hard labor. My Lord, she admits to the second offense, or should I say conviction. The third conviction took place on the said 6th day of October 2017 at the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court. The offense of uttering forged documents, you were fined $100,000 or imprisonment of 9 months at hard labor. My Lord, Miss Christie admits to the third conviction. The fourth conviction, on the said 6th day of October 2017 at the said Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court for the offense of fraudulent conversion. Ms. Christie, you were fined $200,000 or imprisonment of 9 months at hard labor. My Lord, Ms. Christie admits to the fourth conviction. And the fifth and final, Ms. Christie, is on the said 6th day of October 2017 at the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court for the offense of possession of forged documents. And you are sentenced to a term of 9 months, suspended for 2 years. My Lord, she admits to the fifth and final offense.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, my Lord.
As I said, we'll return on Monday morning and we'll complete the sentencing certainly by Tuesday of next week. So that's the 2nd of October. So John, please.
Stand, please. This This court shall adjourn until Monday at 10 a.m. God save the king.